If I asked you, what are your priorities? What would you say? Would you be super clear about them? And then what if I asked you another question? How well is your time aligned with those priorities, right? Are you spending the time that you say you want to on the things that you say you want to do? And you might be thinking, like, yeah, of course, if they're my priorities, I'm spending my time on them, right? But this is not the case. So often, I'll work with coaching clients who will come to me and say things like, my biggest priority is doing strategic work or a strategic plan. And yet, if you look at the calendar, there's not a single hour in the week that's devoted to strategy, right? It's all other types of meetings or readout meetings or, lots of other things that are important and work, but not that actual priority, right? And so if you are finding yourself in what I call this priority gap, where what you say your stated priorities are not in line with how you're spending your time, then you might feel some sort of way. And that some sort of way might be that you feel really stuck. You feel like you're not sure why you don't have momentum going on. You might feel like you're really behind on your personal goals or professional goals. You might find like that you're just feeling really bad about yourself and you're not quite sure why. And these are things that are pretty common to feel when our time is not aligned with our priorities, our values, our goals, etc. So, first things first, how do you find out, right? Now, if you're not sure if your time is well aligned with your goals, your values, your priorities, then one thing you can do is to track your time for a week or so. Now, I say this knowing that like nobody's favorite thing to do is to track their time. But if you do decide to do this, you will actually get some pretty valuable data. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can do it. I mean, I give my coaching clients like five different, or no, probably three different ways to do it, three different modalities. But one easy way that you can do it is to use a free app like Toggle, Toggl, to just track your time for a week or so. You're not looking for perfection. You're just looking to have a heightened awareness of your time and to see if you can tell if the time that you are spending is that really in support of the priorities that you've stated that you have, or is there some sort of a mismatch there and that is causing you some friction in your life. Now, once you have determined this, you may find, you know what? My time is perfectly aligned with my priorities, and that is fantastic. I want to know all your secrets. And if you find that that is not the case, that the time that you're spending on things is actually not very well aligned with what you say your priorities are, then you have a couple of choices. Now, one of the things that you can do is to say, you know what? I thought these were my priorities, but what I'm actually telling myself is that my priorities are something else because I'm spending my time on something else. And so those must be my true priorities. You could just own that your priorities are different than what you thought that they were. Or you can start to reallocate your time, right? You can start to reallocate your time towards your stated priorities. And if you do that, you will make progress on those priorities. You will feel better aligned. You will feel better about yourself, right? Now, easier said than done, right? And so I want to give you a couple of strategies that I find really helpful when something like this comes up for me. And, it's not like I'm immune to this stuff either. I mean, just recently, my husband told me that he thought that I was prioritizing pottery, my hobby, over our family, which, my first reaction was like, what? No. And then, I took a deeper look and I thought, you know what? I am actually spending a lot of time at the pottery studio. So he's not wrong. And so I needed to do a little work to kind of recalibrate my time to make sure that my family still knows that they are my top priority and still allow me to go to the pottery studio because it is a priority for me, even though maybe it's not my top priority, right? So what are some things that you can do to help you if you find yourself needing to realign to like get beyond that priority gap? So, one of the first things that you can do is to separate the planning from the doing. When we are making game time decisions in the moment about how we should spend our time, should I do this or this, like this thing is incoming, etc., we don't make very good decisions, right? Because there's so many things coming at us all day long that it feels like, okay, if we can just take care of these little things and finally we can get to the thing that is our priority. That's not going to happen, right? There's just always an endless amount of work, of pressures, etc. And so separating the planning from the doing, planning out your weeks, planning for time to work on the things that you say that you want to work on, right? Because if we just continue to kind of let the days happen to us, there will be things that are not our priorities that come up and we will feel indebted to do them. And then we will find ourselves in the same place next week, next month, next year, where we haven't really spent time against our priorities. But planning, separating that planning from the doing so that we have a plan to work off of, a plan to make decisions off of, that is going to be really, really helpful for us. Now, you also want to make sure that you're including some buffer time in your plan because there are always going to be things that we didn't know about yesterday that we got to do today that maybe aren't our top priority but still have to get done. There's always going to be some amount of that. So make sure that when you're making your plan, you're accounting for that, right? You don't know what it's going to be, but you know it's going to be something. So account for that in your plan. Another technique that I like to use is to have if-then plans for these things. So, for instance, we often make really emotional decisions in the moment. Somebody wants our time, and we're like, oh, I'm going to feel bad if I don't say yes. And so we just say yes. But if you can define some scenarios that come up frequently, where you may be prioritizing, even though you don't want to, things that are not your stated priorities. So maybe you have blocked time off to work on a big project, but instead you find yourself doing email, or you say you want to delegate more, but instead you're doing it yourself because it's faster. You can come up with some if-then scenarios, some if-then plans for yourself, so that when you find yourself doing email when you said that you were going to be working on a project. What is that if then plan? Maybe it's that in that moment you say, "Oh, right. I wasn't going to do this." And so you shut off your notifications and you shut down the email window and you just get back to what you're doing, right? Or maybe the next time you are doing something that you know you should have delegated already, you say, "You know what? I'm going to take an extra 5 minutes and I am going to record myself doing the thing and I'm going to delegate it to somebody else." But what is the if then plan that you can come up with? And then lastly, you might benefit from using some scripts. And so, what I mean by this is coming up with some language in advance that you can use around boundary setting, around saying no, around pushing back, because these are the things that are typically the hardest for us to do. And not having the words at the ready makes it so much harder, right? It makes it so much harder for us to prioritize ourselves and our own goals, our own priorities, etc. And so, if you can come up with some scenarios of places in which you might want to say no, or how do you say no professionally for X, Y, or Z, or how do you have some language around boundaries that you are setting? When you come up with this language and you have it at the ready, it makes it a lot easier to continue to prioritize your own priorities or to reallocate that time back to your priorities. I would love to hear from you. If you have found yourself in this situation where you know that you're not, that you have these priorities that are over here, but your time, it's over there. What have you done to help yourself get back on track, to reallocate your time so that it is aligned with your goals, your values, and your priorities? Because this, if you're able to do this, it's gonna really help. And I would love to know what has helped you to do that as well.
Hey guys, video editor here. I just want to make sure you guys subscribe if you like the videos because only about 20% of the people that watch our videos actually subscribe. So it'd just be a big help to the channel. Thank you.